we often say at Golden Seeds is that when we make the first investment in these companies, even though the due diligence may have gone on for many weeks, that is really when the work begins. And a very, very big part of the work we do at Golden Seeds and many other places who do this work is figuring out where do we open doors for these companies.
Welcome to She Invests. Join us every week for conversations focused on the growing number of female angel investors, the real unicorns. You'll hear from existing female angel investors, VCs, and fund managers on their investment thesis. From deal flow to exits, they will share the best practices that contribute to their success. Female angel investors will be equipped with the tools and resources to confidently activate their capital in order to make an impact in their community and the global economy. With your host, active angel investor and founder of Hera Angels, Dr. Sylvia Ma.
Welcome back to the She Invest podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sylvia Ma, and this week I spoke with Loretta McCarthy, managing partner and one of the founders of Golden Seeds, an angel investment group which invests in early-stage women-run startups. Loretta and I met at an Angel Capital Association summit where Golden Seeds hosted a dinner event for female angel investors. I was honored and blessed to be actually invited to that dinner. We were able to communicate and collaborate on best practices and our portfolio strategies that night, and it was just great to be amongst fabulous female angel investors really making an impact in the startup ecosystem. But let me take you back. Loretta is an amazing individual. Prior to Golden Seeds, she was Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at Oppenheimer Funds, as well as the VP of Marketing at American Express. She brings to the role at Golden Seeds a deep experience in marketing, product development, public affairs, and corporate communications. She has an extensive experience serving on boards of directors of corporations and not-for-profit organizations. So it is my pleasure and my honor to have Loretta on the podcast today.
So today we have Loretta McCarthy as part of the She Invest podcast. I am just honored and blessed to have her as part of the podcast series. She's a managing partner and responsible for Golden Seeds Angel Network nationwide, which includes member cultivation, orientation, and engagement. Prior to Golden Seeds, and I want to ask about this, she was Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at Oppenheimer Funds, as well as Vice President of Marketing at American Express. So she brings to this role deep experience in marketing, product development, public affairs, and corporate communications. So Loretta, it's just a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the She Invest podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Sylvia.
So, you're one of our first Golden Seeds ladies on the podcast, and I'm so excited to hear more about the history. How was it formed? You are a pioneer in this field, so I would love to know more about the history of the largest angel group across the nation, which is Golden Seeds.
Thank you. I am delighted to talk about it. The first moment that Golden Seeds got started was at a point in 2005. In that year, there were about 45,000 companies in the U.S. that got angel funding, and only 3% of them, that's less than 1,500 of them, were led by women. So that was really the moment where a small group of people decided that something has to happen about this. We knew that women were starting about 30% of the companies in the U.S. at that time, but it was clearly they were not either being heard, or they didn't know how to pitch their businesses, or the environment for raising funding just wasn't working for women entrepreneurs. So that's really how we got started. We knew that women were excelling in education levels and skills and networks in many ways, but for whatever reason, they were being dramatically left out of the process of raising money for startups.
So what was that environment that you created at Golden Seeds? I know that it's very inviting, supportive, but also, wanting to get that entrepreneur successful. So how did you change that environment for that female entrepreneur to get the funding that she deserves?
It was a pretty simple concept at the beginning, which was to create an environment. We didn't know about, most of us had not lived inside of other angel investment networks. We really weren't comparing ourselves to anything. We were just simply saying, we will create an environment in which women entrepreneurs can walk in, talk about their businesses, be seriously considered, being treated respectfully, and get great feedback. So that's what we've been doing from the beginning. It's as simple as that. Create the conditions so all those things can happen.
And then build that network that will invest in that entrepreneur, correct?
Correct. I mean, we were worth nothing if we didn't have investors who were willing to step up and start writing checks. So prior to Golden Seeds, there really were a number of places where women could go and get advice and get training about how to run businesses. Our belief is that we were the first place that in some scale decided that this was only going to work if people started writing checks. And that's what we started to do, is bring people we knew in to observe all of this. You can very easily get excited about the companies that you're seeing. So it doesn't take a lot to get people interested in really celebrating the idea of what women entrepreneurs are doing. That's our best calling card, is to show people what women are doing as entrepreneurs. Quite rapidly, we started growing the Angel Network. So over all of these years, which is now about 13 years, we've had over 650 angel investors who have been investing in women-led companies.
That is amazing. And those angel investors are pretty dynamic, right? Because they're thinking about what will it take to get this successful woman off the ground? Is there things that you guys, train them about that really sets a stage for them to really be that advocate and that advisor for that entrepreneur?
One of the first things we learned is that no matter how substantial the careers have been of the men and women, we do have men who are part of our group. So no matter how substantial their careers have been, this was new to most of them, even if they had had deep financial experience, trying to understand what it took to be supportive of companies at these earliest stages took training. So we created a training program which exists to this day, and it teaches people a lot about the full breadth of doing this work, starting with understanding the basics of angel investing, all the way through how to think about exits, how to think about board service for these companies, how to think about getting them to ultimate success.
I love how Golden Seeds really thinks about that early investor all the way to a established angel investor. How do we get them into the system even more to support that female entrepreneur?
The best success that we have had is simply to expose people to what we do. And what we find is that there are many people who join Golden Seeds because they care about the advancement of women. They care about the justice and the fairness of ensuring that women have the opportunity to succeed as entrepreneurs. On the other hand, we also have people who care a lot about those things, but they also are seeking investment performance. And fortunately, we've learned through the years that more and more data exists that proves that gender diverse management teams simply produce better investment results. So fortunately, we have people who are very mission driven when they come to us, and we have others who are really looking for access to companies that they think are going to succeed in substantial ways. Our companies, even though we definitely invest in women-led companies, our companies are essentially gender diverse. We do not want them to be solely women running these companies, but we do know that if they have at least one woman in the company at the beginning in a senior role or a management role, that the company will very naturally become gender diverse.
And how did you convince people at the very beginning to understand that performance and also advocacy of women goes hand in hand? Because, I mean, we're talking about it now in 2017. It was very different when you started off. How did you convince people? How did that work at the very beginning?
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, because it has changed. And now, today, there is so much understanding of both the potential and the challenges for women entrepreneurs that it's taken on faith now that people understand that. But at the beginning, first of all, a lot of it was driven by a sense of fairness, that we knew enough about the fact that women, there was no reason to feel that the skills and the aptitudes and the ideas that women had and their ability to run businesses that were pretty well documented by that point, there was no reason to feel they shouldn't have an opportunity to attract the capital to grow these businesses. But it was driven at the beginning by this sense of fairness. Fortunately, we were able to call upon many of the research studies that had been done over the years about the advantages of gender diversity. So very quickly thereafter, McKinsey and the Harvard Business Review and major organizations started producing reports that made it very clear that gender diversity on boards of directors and gender diversity in management teams simply produce better shareholder results. So what we've been set out to produce was the result that said that isn't true just for Fortune 100 companies or S&P 500 companies. There's no reason to feel that isn't also true with venture-backed firms. So that's really the premise of how we proceeded through all of these years, and we believe that those things are bearing fruit. There now is research. You probably have seen some of the First Round Capital research that says that in the study that First Round Capital did, that women-led companies or women-founded companies had a 63% better return for investors than the male-founded companies that they've invested in, which was a great proof point for many of us that have had this belief for a very long time that these companies will certainly do as well, but hopefully will do even better than others.
I love that. I also see that the angel round, we have to convince also the VC round. And we talk a lot about this whenever we go to the ACA Summit. I just came back from Wharton and we were talking about gender lens investing. How has Golden Seeds really, because you guys have been such a prominent feature for so many years. How do you fix that pipeline? And what has Golden Seeds been able to accomplish through that?
I'm happy to say that we have a number of VC partners in companies that we've invested in. I think the last time we looked, about a third of our companies actually have investors who are VCs of various levels. So we welcome VCs into the mix, and we actually are a VC because we have funds as well. So because we are members of the National Venture Capital Association, it gives us some access. At the same time, we are worried. I'm sure you know the data that we see, that about 3% of the companies that VCs invested in last year were women-led companies. That's a little bit of improvement, but very small. And we worry a lot about how quickly the VC industry is going to catch up to this, because we feel that our companies can't wait, our companies that need those later rounds of capital. So we are constantly looking for VCs that are interested in investing in these companies, and increasingly they are. We also turn over every rock on the universe to find funders for later stages of these companies, in the possibility that VCs are not going to be the logical choice for all of them. So we become very active with family foundations, family offices, high net worth individuals, corporate VC, and others that often are very interested in what these companies are doing. So other companies that are not the kinds of companies that Golden Seeds invest in may assume that the venture capital industry is the very natural pathway for this. Women-led companies don't have the luxury of that. We believe that one thing that will change the VC industry quite a lot is when there are more venture partners who are women. Of the 100 top VC firms today, about 7% of their 850 partners are women. So that's a very small number. And we believe, and there's data actually that proves the point that when women are partners in VC firms, women-led companies have a somewhere between 2 and 3 times higher likelihood of being funded by the VC firm. Lots of reasons that might be the case, but we really believe that the more women that are sitting at the table as partners in VC firms will make a very big difference.
I echo that completely. I love your thought. The like kind of the crystal ball look is that the atypical journey of a female founder that you as Golden Seeds might invest in. You're looking at different ways of funding that female entrepreneur, because that's how we can solve this. And then the natural journey, the typical journey, is going VC route. What do you think we can do as angel investors to kind of help either of those two journeys? Because I feel like we're kind of changing some of those financial models, that it's okay to go the atypical journey, but at the same time, there's sometimes we need to go down the VC route. How can we, what can we do as a collective? What can we do to really change those numbers? As you already talked about raising the number of VCs who are women, but what other things can we do?
It does start in a lot of ways with getting more and more women actively involved as investors. So that does start at the angel level. And I think it's worth making the point that at the startup level, more and more women-led companies are being funded, as I think you know. And the data for 2016, the most recent time we have data for, does say that about 22% of all companies that got angel funding in 2016 were led by women. That's huge progress in 12 years, because that compares to the 3% earlier. And I believe that was happened in very large part because it is women who stepped up and said, we've got to start funding this. And fortunately, we now have enough women who have their own capital to be able to invest and have the skills and the networks to help to do that. Those same women can influence VCs, and they also can become familiar with what VCs are looking for. So I do believe that there are more and more women who are becoming VCs. As I'm sure you know, there are women who are forming VC firms. Sometimes they are women only, and sometimes they are women only who are looking only at women-led companies. There's all combinations of that. But I do believe that women are becoming more and more present in the VC world. I also believe that we can't just assume that this whole problem is going to be solved by women. What we know we need to do is get these really promising companies in front of all kinds of investors, corporate VCs, corporate venture, other venture firms, and other potential investors. We often say at Golden Seeds is that when we make the first investment in these companies, even though the due diligence may have gone on for many weeks, that is really when the work begins. And a very, very big part of the work we do at Golden Seeds and many other places who do this work is figuring out where do we open doors for these companies. So often we try to open doors for potential customers, for potential strategic partners, but also for potential investors down the road. We can't wait until these companies need that large sum of capital for a later follow-on round. The more we can do to try to get these companies in front of these major investors pretty early in the game, the better it is. The more publicity some of these companies can get that has positive kind of reference to what they're doing and why they're doing something either really disruptive or innovative or is worth taking a look at. The more we can create the conditions so they're calling attention to these great women entrepreneurs, the more that the opportunity will exist.
I love how you've brought up a couple of things that it's the angel investors that are investing in these female led companies. There's marketing, there's connections, there's partnerships, there's PR. So, that kind of goes to the next question is of what does it take to be that angel investor? Because sometimes, you have somebody come up and you're like, you would be great. Well, I don't have the skills. And I know Golden Seeds does such a great job of saying, these are the skills that you need. And you just mentioned quite a bit of skills. What would you say to this, new angel that's coming into the doors of Golden Seeds? What skills will you be able to impart to them?
Usually you could just take a look at their own biography and what they've done and what their life experience has been or their professional experience, and it becomes really evident that they have a lot to contribute to Golden Seeds and to our companies. So the first myth sometimes is that people feel they have to be financially very savvy to be able to do this work. And yes, some people are, but it absolutely is not essential. We always can find people to help with the financial modeling of these companies. We are always looking for people who either have very specific skills that might be, as you say, marketing or PR or social media or knowledge about intellectual property. And there are so many areas that people have spent a lifetime perfecting their own skills that are immediately applicable to Golden Seeds. And then there is the sector knowledge, because we believe at Golden Seeds that we are looking for the best women-led companies all over the country, regardless of what industry they're in. And that puts an extra burden on us to be sure that we have enough people inside of Golden Seeds to be able to evaluate those companies. So we definitely need people who know a lot about healthcare, and a number of people who are experts in enterprise technology. And then there is, of course, the entire consumer business. Sometimes it's consumer products and services. Sometimes it's very technology related. So someone may say, but I'm a physician. What do I have to add to Golden Seeds? And we will always say, it's because you're a physician, and we see so many great companies that are in healthcare, or the same can be said in all of these industries. So the challenge for us often is to be sure that we capture that information about our members, so that we know when we see a company that is in a particular sector or they have a particular need, regardless of whether the particular member of Golden Seeds has invested in that company or not. We are not bashful about asking our members to step in and help out, because that's what they bring to Golden Seeds, their life experience in terms of what industries they've functioned in or what skills they've developed.
And then when they come in, they get the skills that they need to be a great angel investor.
That's right. So we immediately say the sooner you take the Golden Seeds training, the better. And what we have found is that many people take the training courses multiple times, because they take it the first time and then they go off and work on a few deals, and they come back and say, I'd like a refresher. And we urge people to step up and be leaders of our deals early on. We can always team them up with someone who's been doing it for a while. But it's very motivating to come up the learning curve when you've stepped into the role of leading a due diligence team. So we can provide that training about the nature of this work. We can't provide the training about how to evaluate a cardiology product or how to evaluate an artificial intelligence product. So many of our members are actually the people who bring that skill to Golden Seeds.
And with that angel network across the United States, what are the largest success factors that have proven good in building that network? Because sometimes somebody's in Chicago or in a smaller town like Tennessee or something like that. And how do they create an angel group, and how do they grow that? What are those success factors to grow that angel network?
So we do have chapters all over the country, and then we also have individual members who are members in a place where we don't have a chapter. It's really helpful that technology is such today that people can participate from afar through technology, Zoom, Skype, whatever is available. And fortunately, people are not only motivated, but they're technically proficient and they're able to do that. They can follow all of our deals all the time in our software system. But when we do decide to go to a city, we really feel there are really three things that have to exist. We believe there, first of all, have to be a plentiful amount of women entrepreneurs that are doing interesting things, because we know that women entrepreneurs probably don't have the option of picking up themselves and their lives and their families and moving, let's say, to Silicon Valley, where they can move into a coffee shop and wait to be discovered. Women don't do it that way. They are going to be, if they're there and they're, let's say, in Chattanooga or in Denver or in Houston, they're going to stay there. And therefore, we often want to be sure that we find them. And they will often find us because we have become pretty well known, but we certainly want to be able to identify them, and having a chapter there is the best way. So the first thing is, are there enough women entrepreneurs here so that we are going to be able to identify some great opportunities? The second thing is to have enough potential members who we think will step up and be active members. So with Golden Seeds, it nearly always starts with a group of women who are really eager to do this. We do have chapters where men have been part of the founding group, which is great, but we certainly believe that the initial leadership has to come from women to do this focus on women entrepreneurs. So we evaluate that. Do we have enough potential for people to commit to doing this work and making investments in these companies? If they join Golden Seeds in any of these locations, of course, they have access to all of the companies that we're considering all over the country. But at the same point, many of them are particularly interested in identifying local companies. That's kind of the way of angel investing. In many ways, people like to find companies that are close to home. And the third thing is really leadership. We ask people, and all groups who run groups of angel investors, ask their members to do a lot. They ask them to do the due diligence. They ask them to meet with entrepreneurs and get involved with these companies. They typically have an annual fee to be able to have access to all of this. Then they ask them to write checks to these companies. So we ask a lot of angel investors. We believe they get a lot in return and a lot of gratification out of doing this work, and hopefully investment returns. But we do believe that the local leadership and the national leadership means a lot in any angel organization, so that people are really motivated to keep doing this work, and that they feel that it's gratifying and that the value that they bring is really evident to all. And so that is all part of creating the conditions in which women entrepreneurs will be seriously considered, but also creating the conditions so that angel investors feel that it's really a good use of their time and skills and the networks and money.
Yeah, because it does take quite a bit of work to get the entrepreneurs to come in and pitch and do all of that. It's not light. And I love how you guys open up your doors to have the angel access hours, or office hours. Sorry. Can you walk us through that a little bit? Because I love how that just is a great synergy between the entrepreneur and the angel investor.
In all of the locations where we have enough people, chapters to do this, we have office hours approximately once a month. And it started a number of years ago now, when we realized that there really are a lot of entrepreneurs who are not quite ready to actually fill out an application. And yet they want advice. They want the opportunity to talk to somebody, to talk to ideally investors who can give them guidance about the steps that they should take to get to that point. So once a month in all of our locations, we do open our doors. We have companies, they register in advance so that we know how many are coming, but we try to ensure that there are investors who come, members who come and interact with these entrepreneurs. So in the process, they learn something about angel investing, because we tell them how to start thinking about funding in the earliest stages. But we also have the big opportunity for these companies is to have the opportunity to meet one-on-one with angel investors who can listen to whatever they have to say at that early stage. It's a pretty brief meeting, but we always say to the entrepreneur, this is your time to use however you want. So sometimes they have just had an idea and they want to know what we think, but very often they're quite far along and they just don't know if they're really ready to pitch their business to investors. And they'll get advice on that. And we will often say, identify what we think they need to do next, or what are the 2 or 3 things they probably need to accomplish before they go seeking funding. For us, it's also an opportunity to see companies at the earliest stages, because if we can form some early relationships, we'll hopefully see them later when they really are ready. And then by the time they do come back in, ready to talk about their businesses, with any luck, they have a few allies in the room of people they possibly have already met.
And what is the criteria for Golden Seeds for that first pitch? Because they come in, they meet with you in office hours. What do you tell them to get ready? Because every single angel group is a little bit different. So I would love to know more about Golden Seeds, about that.
Thank you for asking. It varies by sector, really, by industry. But we always ask companies to imagine that the people that are sitting there considering investing in their companies are being asked to make an investment in someone they don't know, and based on really very little information about the likelihood of the company succeeding. So we always say the more progress you can make that is demonstrable and repeatable, the more confidence people have that this is likely to be a successful company or will become successful. So we'll often say, show us some revenue. Not every single company can show revenue, as you know, Sylvia, since I know you do a lot in the healthcare space. The healthcare companies typically will not have revenue yet, but they have something to show for what they're creating. They'll show a prototype or scientific results in one way or another that will give us confidence or not that we should consider an investment. For most products and companies, we want to see some amount of customers, some amount of revenue, some amount of proof that the marketplace wants this product or service. Ideally, that they've existed long enough so they have customers who have purchased more than once, so that there's some repeat business and some essentially loyalty to their customer. We want the opportunity to be able to talk to their customers, obviously with their concurrence, but in the process of due diligence, you want to know what is the customer experience been like. If they've had no customers, can't do that, so it makes it harder to do due diligence. So we ask entrepreneurs to just imagine that it is going to be a whole lot more likely that they will end up with an investment from us if they can prove that the marketplace wants and needs this product or service, and that they have, can demonstrate that to us.
I love you. I had a recent Forbes article last month, and I read it, and I love that aspect of you're saying the startup team has to have a ratio between optimism and realism. So we talked about the criteria already, but what is that ideal ratio? I know you can't say, it's 3-2 or something like that, but what does that mean, optimism and realism?
Every entrepreneur has got to be optimistic. If they are not certain that they're going to have a success, it makes it very hard for us to want to be able to turn over funding to them. So we love people being optimistic and confident that the market wants and needs whatever they are offering, and that they have the ability to execute on that, because a lot of this is, of course, about execution. On the other hand, we've now been doing this long enough that we know that it often takes longer and costs more than the entrepreneur believes at the beginning. And so therefore, they have to be realistic. They have to plan. It's fine for them to make a very optimistic plan, but they also have to have plan B that says, what's the backup plan if this doesn't roll out exactly as we're imagining? And the significance of that is that if they're not realistic about a backup plan, they will run out of money faster. The revenue will come in lower. They they will have taken potentially on overhead that they really can't handle. And those are things that really make it difficult for companies to survive at all. So that's the realistic side of it, is to really understand what are your contingencies here, just in case it doesn't turn out exactly as you wish. And companies and entrepreneurs that do have that right balance of optimism and realism also inspire confidence, so that they're not living in dreamland, thinking that their plan is going to be fulfilled exactly as they imagined. We know that life happens, and the things can happen in the economy, and they can have unanticipated competitors enter the picture, or any number of things that can happen to affect the pace at which their company is growing, things can happen to accelerate the pace. So you certainly want them to be prepared to handle rapid growth as well. But they just have to understand that we sometimes say, and I think that my partners and colleagues at Golden Seeds would agree with this. We've invested in 150 companies at this time, and at this point, and I cannot think of one that 1 year later, after our first investment, had the identical business plan that we invested in a year earlier. It doesn't mean they're failures. In fact, what we're investing in is their judgment to be able to constantly evaluate their plan and determine where they need to tweak it, where they need to change it, or where they need to possibly pivot rather substantially. So we're really investing in the judgment of these entrepreneurs to be able to look enough further into the future to be able to imagine whether this plan is going to hold up over a period of time or not. And how does my cash situation support what's happening here?
And I see that with that same conversation for that angel investor in your network of saying you need to have an optimism and realism ratio there. And how do you advise and mentor those entrepreneurs? Because Golden Seed does such a great job of mentoring these entrepreneurs to go through that. So it's on the other side too, correct?
It absolutely is. One of the first things we do at Golden Seeds is ask people to go to something we call new member orientation. It's not part of our normal training program. It's mainly a time where we can say, okay, now that you've signed up to become a member, this is the time to start thinking about how you're going to approach this as an investor for your own portfolio. We do not give investment advice to these investors, but we do say, share what we know to be the facts about angel investing. So we certainly say, understand that diversification is really important. We do know that there's not a lot of great research about the results in angel investing, but among those is the fact that the more diversified you are, the better. People often say the sooner you can get up to 8 or 10 or more investments, the better. So diversification is one of the things that can mitigate risk, and we urge people to think about how quickly they might be able to get to a diversified portfolio. We also ask them to think about what stages they're interested in investing in, very early or a little bit later. We do talk to them about follow-on investments, because nearly every company comes back for follow-on investment. We coach people to consider how they will evaluate the companies they've invested in who are seeking more capital. We like the idea of supporting our companies with follow-on capital if the conditions are right for us to be able to continue to invest in that company. But we also urge our members to know they're not obligated to do that. It's helpful to the entrepreneur if they can get follow-on capital from their current investors, and it certainly is the first place they should go. But we also urge people to realize that it's not an obligation. They have every right and really expectation to do the appropriate due diligence on the company's progress and make their own decisions about whether they want to continue. So these are the kinds of things you can and should coach angel investors on that are they don't discuss so much when they're still when they're in the early stages of considering whether to join. But once you start really meeting companies and you're evaluating, all of a sudden you go to a meeting and you see 8 great companies and you're tempted to do something with all of them, then the reality sets in about what is my own investment strategy here.
Yeah, and I love that that investment thesis also is so important per each individual angel investor.
Yes, that's right.
I've loved this discussion. Anything else about Golden Seeds that I haven't touched or I don't know anything about, or anything that you want to add?
No, we are just very proud of what we've been able to accomplish. We believe that had a lot of help, a lot of support from many, many thousands of people, really, to make this happen. We're really thrilled that the recognition of the importance of supporting women entrepreneurs is so evident. I just came from India last Saturday. I attended the Global Entrepreneurship Conference, which had a specific focus on women entrepreneurs worldwide, which was so gratifying to realize that there was the Prime Minister of India giving a talk about the importance of women entrepreneurs in India. And you think this is really a worldwide movement that we can all be very proud of.
One of my board of directors just came back from that summit, so she talked my ear off about it. So it was interesting to see that there is definitely a global interest and push and progress towards that.
Great.
Wonderful. So in the last couple minutes, I have a rapid final 4 questions. They're really easy. So number 1 is, what's your favorite angel investing resource?
My best resource are my colleagues at Golden Seeds, because they are just a wealth of information, really smart, savvy people who have many opinions and are really based on their own experience.
That's awesome. Thank you. Number 2 is, what's your favorite book?
Many, but my favorite book at the moment is David McCullough's book called The Wright Brothers, the story about the creation of their invention. It's really a story of innovation, determination against all odds, of people thinking that they were creating something that was really a crazy idea, to imagine anything such as man flying in the air, and they hung in there as an incredible team of people, and it really is an inspiring story.
And the criteria for an awesome entrepreneur. That's awesome. Number 3 is, who has been a major influence in your life?
I often say this, but I have to say my own mother. She was the mother of 5 daughters and 1 son, and she made it very clear that she is a woman who went to law school in the 1930s and managed to raise 6 children in the process. And, she's my complete inspiration.
That is an inspiration. 6 children's and working back in, wow, it is amazing. My major influence is my mother as well. So we have that in connection. So the last one is, what does abundance mindset mean to you?
I believe it means that you are always open to the possibilities of anything, that you simply do not let limitations define how you approach your life.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Loretta, so much for being part of the She Invest podcast. It is a complete honor to have you. And I wish Golden Seeds so much, many, many more years of being part of this.
Good luck with all of your work. It sounds like you're having a great experience, Sylvia, and we're honored to be part of this.
Thank you, Loretta. Have a wonderful day.
Today, we had the opportunity to have a conversation with managing partner and one of the founders of Golden Seeds, Loretta McCarthy. So Loretta opens up about her passion for supporting female entrepreneurs and her drive to see their impact in the economy. She also highlights why it's important to have a balance of optimism versus realism as a startup founder. Let's break that down a little bit. Optimism, she says, is that the startup founder needs to have the confidence that they have the ability, of course, along with their dynamic team, to execute on product market fit. But the realism aspect of it is another component of it. The startup founder's plan A might take longer and cost more than what the entrepreneur thinks. So a plan B should be developed with the best assumptions possible. That is a realist approach. Loretta also shares the history of Golden Seeds and describes the environment they've created for female-led startups. She explains how Golden Seeds was able to establish themselves in the startup ecosystem and the value they provide to new angel investors and existing angel investors to find their tribe. Female angel investing groups have had a considerable amount of progress, thanks in part to Golden Seeds, but Loretta challenges all of us that there is still room to grow through collaboration and knowing that there are multiple possibilities to make an impact. This was a fascinating and fun conversation, so hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to and subscribing to the She Invest podcast. Go on over to sheinvest.com for the full show notes for this episode, as well as any resources, websites, and opportunities mentioned during the show. Sign up for the sheinvest.com newsletter to learn about events like our annual Hera Venture Summit during the month of September and our She Invests monthly investor circles. Thank you for your time, talent, and treasure.